Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this DevOps.com program, brought to you by Techstrong and Firefly. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we've got an exciting conversation ahead. First, I've got to cover just a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's conversation will be recorded, so if you miss any of our session, maybe you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend. The on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude the live session today. If you have any questions, and I'm sure you do, and I hope you do, we want you to send those in to us using the Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. Over on that right side of the screen, you'll see a couple other options. The next most important one being the chat tab. So I want you to go ahead and start warming that one up for us now. You can start off by letting us know from where you are joining us. We will have a poll that will launch a little bit into the program, and it'll be open-ended. So feel free to type in your response. And if you'd like to elaborate, please do so in the chat. We do want to learn from you. And if you navigate to that handouts panel, you'll see there are a handful of handouts there for you to download, so feel free to grab those. And of course, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards at the end of our program. So the topic of our discussion today is find the unknown unknowns and prevent downtime with infrastructure as code. Now I'm joined by 2 industry experts, Eran Bibi, co-founder and chief product officer at Firefly, and Holden Omans, Senior DevOps Engineer at Ndustrial. So Eran, Holden, thank you both so much for joining me. Eran, I've got a question for you. So the path to co-founding any tech venture cannot be brief. Do you mind telling us a bit more about your experience and expertise in the field?
Yes, of course. So I'm doing DevOps and cloud engineering in the past 10 years and so, and I really like the DevOps methodology. I was early adopter of that movement, and I did a few roles on that domain, mainly about hands-on, but in the past few years, I did a leadership kind of positions, and now I was one of the founders of Firefly, building solution for DevOps engineers.
All right, well, thank you for being here with us today, Eran. Holden, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your day-to-day and what your priorities are at Ndustrial?
My day-to-day is pure chaos, as all DevOps engineers know. But in reality, I do deal with a lot of chaos, but I also have a team of 3 to 4 engineers that I work with. Mainly, we have a DevOps as a service for our customers, and we manage somewhere between 6 and 7 Kubernetes clusters, as well as infrastructure, IoT from our customers, and developer requests. So day to day is managing all of those requests, making sure our infrastructure is running smoothly, and answering any question between load balancing to AWS to literally from marketing, Excel questions. That is DevOps in my life daily. So
awesome. Well, thank you for both of your introductions. Let's. I know, Eran, you've got some level setting and a presentation that we'd like to go over. So let's go ahead and get that pulled up.
Great. Okay. So the topic that I would like to share today and discuss with the audience is about the stuff that we have in the cloud, but in few of the cases we don't know that we have those. And maybe I will try to point out a few of those and make better awareness about the potential risk that involved with having workloads that you are not aware of. So before I will dive into this topic, I want to share that Firefly released a state of the IaC report, which is very informative, and you can get a lot of ideas of how other people managing their cloud infrastructure. So we will share the link for that report after the session, and I really encourage you to download and read it. there is a very nice things that we are highlighting, and some of those information are going to be very surprising. So if we are talking about the topics about unknown in the cloud, I'm will be focusing on the resources that in most of the cases they are under the radar. The DevOps engineer, when he's doing the day-to-day activities, is not aware about those workloads. And of course, this is not the case of if you don't know, it's not hurting you. So hopefully by the end of this session, you will have some background and some other perspective of how you can increase the visibility of your clouds and making sure nothing is slipping under your radar. Okay, so before diving into the unknown use cases, I just want to share with you the stuff that we are considering as the pillars of managing cloud infrastructure. So first of all, security is one of the stuff that is most important for us to understand, like the security posture of our cloud. This is a well-established category and market, and there is a very good awareness and of course tools that help the DevOps engineer and SecOps engineer to make sure there is no unpatched or vulnerable workloads in the cloud. The other topic is of course cost, and nowadays this is something that is really on the agenda of DevOps engineer, making sure there is no cloud clutter, making sure everything is optimized and you are not wasting money on unnecessary workload. Compliance is one of the huge topics, making sure that everything is within the compliance that fit to your specific business. And the last one will be reliability and performance, making sure everything is well architected and the stuff that you are provisioning to the cloud built for scale and built to be running on the SLA that being set for your workload. So I'm going to deep dive on those four main examples of unknown. The first one will be shadow cloud accounts. Second one will be shadow region. Then I will share with you some example about infrastructure leftover that is created by a third-party applications. And the last unknown will be what is the IaC status of your cloud, and in particular, a specific resource, and why it is important to understand what is the IaC status of your cloud. So for explaining what is shadow cloud account, I will give a concrete example. So let's assume we have the DevOps team and the DevOps leader named Tony, and the policy that is applied on their organization is that only a DevOps team members or the cloud engineers, their reliability team, have an access to provision and change workload in the cloud. And this is totally makes sense. Of course, we would like to make sure only professionals and authorized people have access to the cloud console. But then you have a different organization. You have a stakeholder on the sales team. He need to create some workload for something that is, for example, related to a potential customer. He would like to experiment something. He would like to be trained on the cloud. He need that access to the cloud, but he doesn't have the access to the production or development account in the organization because the organization policy is not permitting him to use the cloud. So what usually happened is that Peter, the sales engineer, is asking from his manager a permission to use the company credit card and create a sandbox account. And of course, cloud is a self-service platform. Anyone with a credit card can create cloud account. So it get this permission. Of course, it's a very minimal kind of cost involved in that. It can be like few dollars. It can even use like the free tier kind of workloads that AWS Cloud permits. So the credit card might be even not utilized in that story. But this is exactly how shadow cloud accounts happening. So from his perspective, he need that in order to drive success in his work. From the cloud engineers and the DevOps team leadership perspective, he cannot access any account that is associated with the organization, but he just need a credit card, and he can use even his personal Gmail account to open this and like make it something that is not really related to the organization. But of course, he is an employee of the company, so it is indeed a shadow account that the company should be accountable of. So this is something that is happening in a lot of organizations. There is, if we are talking about a huge organization with a lot of departments, and you will find places where people provision new accounts that people are not aware about it. And of course, even if it's not happening, we see a situation where people are creating workloads and something that we are calling shadow regions. So shadow region is when you have the mainstream region, let's say US East 1, all of the workloads, the production workload are sitting there. You have a US East 2, you are using that region as a replica for the development or a staging environment. But in a different region, let's assume the Asia Pacific region, somebody used that region as a sandbox account because the assumption is it is isolated from the production. Any workload that you will put there will not be causing any service interruption. So this was the motivation. However, there is no governance and monitoring on those workloads, and the workloads and infrastructure that being done on those shadow regions are tend to be left over there. And of course, the potential risk of shadow accounts and shadow region is that you are not monitored them for security, and also they can create excessive cost. The other type of unknowns is resources that was created by a third-party application. So we have few examples. If you have any application that have permissions to use the cloud API and provision resources or to alter resources, and the main example, and like maybe the most famous example, is a Kubernetes cluster. So Kubernetes cluster is integrated with the cloud account. When you are creating a storage object in Kubernetes and you have a claim for it, it will create a physical storage in the cloud, an EBS volume or other type of storage. If you are using security control in Kubernetes, it will change your security groups in the cloud. And of course, if you are using an ingress controller, it will create a load balancer in the cloud. So Kubernetes is working in that sense that it can create and delete and change configuration on the cloud. And in some of the case, we can see that if you are not properly tiered down those resources, Kubernetes has the tend to keep those in the cloud. Again, it can be by a human mistake, by some API issue that happened during the time, or somebody terminate the cluster not in a proper way. But the result is that you can find a lot of load balancer and a lot of EBS volumes in your cloud that you are not aware of, that was created by Kubernetes, that is not longer being used. So this is a classic example of a leftover unknown that was created by a third party. It's not a human that created that resource. It's a third party tool that created that resource and is not utilized right now. And the fourth example of unknown in the cloud is the IaC status and the overall coverage that you have on your account. And I will explain this. So an IaC status of a resource is understanding if that resource was created manually through the web console or created with one of the IaC framework, for example, Terraform or CloudFormation. So there is few ways to do that. Most of the teams doesn't have a proper tooling in place to understand the coverage, using methods like tags in order to flag those resources as resource that managed by IaC. But it's not straightforward. So if I will get user interface visibility to my resources, for example, I will go to the EC2 page in AWS and see the list of all, I don't know, my hundreds of EC2s. It will not be clear to me if few of those created by Terraform, the other created by manually through the AWS API or manually through the AWS UI or other type of IaC. So this is considered as a huge unknown in terms of the visibility of the resources. And of course, if something is managed by infrastructure as code and you don't know it and you have a permission to change the configuration, you can create infrastructure drift and basically have a discrepancy between how you describe it in your code to the running configuration. And of course, we are considering in Firefly, every resource that was manually created is an unmanaged asset, and hence you don't have a version control of it. So IaC coverage is something that is tend to be slipped from the visibility of the typical cloud engineer. Few more examples of unknowns, of course, legacy workloads, stuff that were created before the time that you are applied to that position. And for examples, there was a huge project, lift and shift workloads from on-prem to the cloud. It was done without a cloud native tools like IaC. And right now, let's say 5 years into that action, you still have those workloads. They are not maintained as the other like recent workloads that you have a very good governance on them. So we see a lot of DevOps engineer, like when we are talking with teams, they know that they have some workloads there of a certain legacy application, but it's not clear for them exactly the cloud footprint because it was done before their time. Also, when you are creating resources in the cloud, whether they are development, production, or even sandbox kind of playground, if you are leaving the company, departing from the company, and moving to a different company, the termination process of an employee that have permission, like he is authorized to write stuff on the cloud, is not including an automation of identifying the resources that is created and remove them properly. So when we are scanning clouds, we find out about a lot of resources created by employees that are not working anymore. in some of the cases, it can be something harmless, no cost involved and no security vulnerability on them. But the fact that you have something sitting on your cloud that was done by someone that is not working is an issue. It's just giving you that sense that you don't have a very good visibility and your cloud is going out of control. And just for recapping about the causes of unknowns in the cloud, the main reason is that there is not enough adoption of tools that giving you that deep visibility about what's happening on your all of your region and all of your account. And of course, if you are multi-account and multi-cloud kind of strategies become even more challenging. The speed of like the face of putting workloads and infrastructure in the cloud is getting higher and higher because we have those automation tools for deployments, and of course tools like Kubernetes that is scaling up, scaling down, creating storage, creating load balancers. And so it's really difficult and challenging to track about all of the change and understand whether this is necessary and this is a mistake, for example. And as I mentioned, stuff that are related to employees that already departed the company. So one of the stuff that we are suggesting, of course, is to use Firefly to overcome some of those challenging. And Firefly have a community offering with a free tier, so you can experiment with the tool without using credit card or commit to any other commercial agreements. So we are encouraging people to try it out and check it out. And of course, we will share the state of the IaC report, and you will get more insight about the adoption of IaC in other team and how other team are managing cloud nowadays.
So, Erod, we did receive a question, and it had to do with the shadow cloud accounts. So, can OpenShift be configured to prevent those accounts, or at least detect and report them?
OpenShift?
Yes, sir.
So the answer will be no. So OpenShift is a container orchestrator that is running underlying the cloud. So is not the right tool and is not built for detecting a shadow account or shadow region.
Awesome. Thank you for that. To everyone who's with us right now, we're about to launch a poll. So this poll question should be popping up on your screen right now, and it is open prompt. So feel free to type in your response, but it is, what is the most common unknown you face in your cloud? And of course, if you'd like to elaborate, please do tell us more in the chat. So while we wait for some of those responses to come in, Eran, from your experience, what are the most dangerous unknowns in your cloud, and what makes them so dangerous?
So again, it really depends on the risk that is involved. I think I gave that example of the shadow account. This is something this is a real life story. It's very easy to get credit card and spin up new cloud account and like bypassing the policy of the company, because anyone can do that. You cannot prevent it really. Even if you will have some monitoring on the endpoint of the employee, he can do that from other computer. So what we saw, we have a story when somebody created a shadow account. He was very naive, but he put some of the keys of like the GitHub keys out there doing the experiment. This account was not governed by any tools because it was shadow account, and this account was breached. This is in one of my previous companies that I work for, and people used that account to Bitcoin mining, and there was a lot of cost involved, till the point where we got email from AWS telling us we have account that was compromised. We didn't even realize that that account exists. So I think that shadow account considered to be one of the riskier unknowns.
All right, Holden, let's go ahead and bring you into the fold here. So, same question to you. What do you think are the most dangerous unknowns in your cloud?
Well, I don't. Well, so I think dangerous. I may not be saying the most dangerous, the most annoying, and most dangerous in terms of like operating costs and things like that. I see this in the poll here. A lot of people saying the same thing, which is legacy, leftover projects, things that aren't cleaned up, old assets, right? Those are what I consider the most, I can't say dangerous, I guess, but most tedious and annoying. I'll go more into that when we demo. But dangerous, one of the things that Firefly actually helped us identify are, outside attacks or security vulnerabilities that you just don't know about. So while you may have shadow accounts and things like that, you may also have infrastructure that's running on an old version or that has a vulnerability. And we've written some rules to help us mitigate those. Identifying the assets so that we can have a view and say, here's the things that are vulnerable, let's go fix them. Let's make an effort to clean those up.
So are there any specific unknowns that are especially hard to identify or to pull out?
I think the things that are especially hard are those legacy projects and leftover things, because especially if, my story of Firefly and why I really jumped in it was because I inherited an infrastructure that I didn't know, right? And so you have to be able to distinguish what's, production, what's active versus this EC2 instance that's been running for 4 years and who owns it? What is it doing there? What is going on there? Those are the most difficult to identify, because you can go to log into AWS and you can see your list of EC2 instances or virtual machines, and you're just going to go, this is going to take me forever to figure it out. I like the
Awesome.
poll response of okay.
Well, let's actually talk about some of these responses. So I'm going to put them up on the screen. Eran, any of these responses surprise you, or maybe any that you wholeheartly agree with?
Yes, everything here is totally makes sense because visibility, having an holistic visibility is hard. There is tools that are like the CSPM kind of category is aimed for a certain persona, like the security, the CISO, and for people that are more concerned about resource utilization and cost. So there is like a cloud cost systems, and so they are building systems for certain use case, but there is no something that is giving you that high level confident that everything is tight and everything is there for a reason. And I totally agree with Alden that when you are inherent infrastructure, it's really hard, and I will say it's frightening to know that you have something there. You think, or there is a rumor that is just a VM that was spin up 4 years ago and you can tear it down. And then you are doing that experiment of not deleting it, only stopping that machine to see what's happening. And you have some, I don't know, God forbid.
And your main web page goes down, like done.
Something like that. It's like this VM is running a shell script in a cron job that is, responsible of some business logic, right? And you didn't realize that it's not documented anywhere. And this is the stuff that we are dealing. It's really complex to come to a new organization replacing someone that have that knowledge, and you need to walk between those resources and make sure that you are not damaging any business. In the other area, you don't want to keep leftovers and stuff that are not supposed to be running there for a lot of time. So this is like the dilemmas that we are dealing with.
Another poll kind of common theme I'm seeing is cost, cost and who made this. And this is especially true when you have multiple departments that can create infrastructure or create cloud. I think it was in your presentation of, sales guy wanting to make something, or, marketing wanting to make an S3 bucket to throw assets in or something like that. One, if they have access, they're making it. You may not be aware of it, but your cost is going up or something like that. So these are unknowns that are not necessarily within your control, but having a tool or something like that that gives you notifications or gives you insight into these things that are not within your infrastructure as code is hugely important, because, the developer making 3 EC2 instances that are huge for testing, lots of stuff, and then going on vacation for 2 weeks and leaving them running or something like that. Those are costs.
So we just got from our audience a whole list of issues that they're facing. And as experts and people who do this on a day-to-day basis, what do you think they can do today to begin coping with these unknowns? Holden, you want to get that one started?
Yeah, I laugh because I really say, this is, sign up for Firefly. I think Firefly actually is a tool that I stumbled upon at KubeCon. These guys, we were a booth over from them, and he showed it to me on like day 3, and my mind was already melting from everything. And I said, I need this now, because it gives you, at least, I don't know any other tool that gives you the insight that you can see what's going on, you can see the unknowns, and start moving them into codification. I can share. Would you like me to just jump into that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that demo going.
All right. Yeah, so I guess I've been joined and brought in to show you how we use it. So for reference, I came to Ndustrial a year or two pre-pandemic, or I don't even know. It's all blur. And I inherited an infrastructure that I had no idea anything about, right? And so Firefly came in, and I said, this is the tool I need to be able to see everything. And so I'll just jump right in and show you. So Firefly, you kind of log in, you hook up your AWS account, and they start gathering information. As you can see, this is kind of the dashboard, which is really nice. We can see some stats that are going on here, and I'll explain them a little bit. So it looks at your Terraform, your infrastructure as code. I would have to defer to Firefly on exactly what they support, but it's a lot. We mainly use AWS and Terraform for our infrastructure as code. And so what this is pretty much telling me, I'm looking at it, and we have, I click the production only. We have 2,000 assets, essentially 42% of them are infrastructure as code. So 42% are in our Terraform, controlled. And then we have 52% unmanaged, which is things that are not in my Terraform. And if we went down and we actually looked at these, we have 460, which are AWS records, right? We use Kubernetes, and external DNS actually makes these and updates them. So I should write in a rule to exclude these, but I have not yet. Same with these AWS load balancers, auto scaling, things like that. I just wrote the rules. It hasn't gone into effect. I've been putting it off. So that will drop my numbers down a lot. The other thing that Firefly I really enjoy is the asset list. So I'm only going to show you my lab here, but you can see I have a whole bunch of AWS accounts. I have my Kubernetes, some of my Kubernetes clusters. We haven't moved them all. Even Datadog integration here, so I can see all the assets. Once again, they kind of break things into different buckets, which is codified, which is, infrastructure as code. It's in my Terraform. Drifted, which is things that you have in Terraform but has changed. This is important for people that have access and go in and, I needed to make that EC2 instance bigger. I needed to add more memory, more RAM, or something like that. And they change it, but they didn't update the Terraform. Now your code has changed, and next time you apply your Terraform, it's changed, or it's going to undo the change you made manually. And unmanaged, once again, is the things that we have not moved. And so this number used to be even greater. I go back and I say, 42%. I don't remember if remember, Aaron, but it was like 1 or 10%, when we signed up. So the cool thing is if we find something, unmanaged, like this S3 bucket, which I don't know where it came from. Well, it's an ELB test bucket. Who knows what that means? I guess I'll get with the guys and we'll ask later. But I can see that someone has made a bucket. I didn't make it. Someone made it, but they didn't put it in Terraform. But the cool thing is that we can hit the codified button and Firefly just pops up with literally infrastructure as code. We can copy this. It even gives you the commands to run a Terraform import, and it's now codified once we do those two things. And then we can decide whether we want to keep it or not and manage it through Terraform, right? This alone is a time saver, is huge. As I said, we went from like 10% coverage to like 42%, and those numbers are skewed because we have a lot of automatic things that are being created and we haven't really excluded them from our numbers here. This right here is amazing to me. Thank you, Firefly. Saved us so much time. You can also, let's see, unmanaged. I can look at this, say there's 2 S3 buckets. Let me just codify these, and I can do it in bulk to get these imported. They actually have hookups to your GitHub, so you can make pull requests to add them into your, Terraform files. They got a lot. So they have CloudFormation, lots of integrations. I mainly use Terraform. So you can then see all the things that are unmanaged, all the things that are codified. Like I said, the one thing that we can do is look at drifted, and let's not look at Kubernetes because things change all the time. We've got a lot of things that are drifted. So if we look at what is this drifted, this is a security group, what has changed, and it will tell you what changed. This is that had 3 rules and it got removed. Let's find a better one. Look at this node group. Let's see what's changed. Drift. So this one, there was actually a 3rd field here, which I was just ignoring. So this one is a EKS node group, and it has been changed, or it has not been upgraded yet. But I really don't care because this is all automatically handled. So the nice thing here is I can just click a button here. And like I said, there was a 3rd value here, and I don't really care about the version change because it'll be handled automatically. And so just if it's an EKS node group, just don't show me this drift again because I know it's fine because we handle upgrades. And so this will be excluded from the drift. But this is a good example where, say someone went in and changed something, you can see what changed. You can fix the drift with a commit here. See where it will tell me what I should be changing here, changing my versions. So those are really cool.
Hey, Holden, we got a quick question. Are artifacts
right.
created via Firefly of the activities performed?
Are artifacts created via Firefly of the activities performed, e.g. the demo? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but maybe you're asking if there's like a record of the change. And that was actually going to be my fifth tab here. There is an event explorer that Firefly can give you. So here we can see the events, and these get sent to our Slack channel based on what we meant. But if you want to clarify that question a little bit more, I'll gladly go into it more, but I'm not quite sure what you mean. But so what Firefly does is essentially it'll watch your AWS for a new instance that's created, right? It will then say it's drifted or unmanaged. Someone has made something. So let's just look at unmanaged, right? Somebody created something. This route record, right? This, I know what made this. This is external DNS, but this is a good example. We would get a notification say someone compromised your attack, right? Or compromised your account, sorry, and made an attack on your infrastructure and started creating 32 EC2 instances in East China or Europe, and someone just started making stuff. You don't know who it is. We get a notification, Firefly say, hey, like all your stuff's in infrastructure. Here's a bunch of things that were just created that you don't have in your code. Okay, well, I got a notification. I can go respond and do something about that. So that's the assets that are generated in Firefly, and I hope that answers your question. And then there is, let's see, I don't know if I had a good example up here. They have a history button where you can actually see the history of some of your things. Let's undo drift here. Go back to my lab. Code trace. Well, you can trace some code, configuration, see the stack, see the Git file that it's actually in. Great integrations. I'm trying to remember. I clicked one earlier and it had a history. Some of these will show you the history of how you changed it over time. That also might be what you're referring to, the artifact of activities performed, where you can say, this used to be this. Someone changed the version here and it's changed again here. And you can see the history of the drift, I believe. This won't necessarily give you I consider using change management process and authorization validation change records to change activity before actions can be taken. Okay, so I don't think Firefly provides that level of who changed it.
Maybe I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
To clarify the change management. So what we did recently that introduced a new capability called asset history. And this is what Holden say, that we are keeping revisions of your infrastructure like as a snapshot in time, allowing you to see the changes over time of a specific resource in case it's changed. And of course, who is the owner that performed the change. What we are planning to do in the next quarter is to allow you prevention capabilities. So in case you have a policy that doesn't allow a certain change to be happening, then Firefly will prevent that to be introduced to your cloud. So right now we are alerting, and in the future we will preventing as well.
Yeah, good answer, because I didn't have that. Next question, though, is, let's see. In Firefly, would it be possible to create rules, policies that automatically convert unmanaged resources into managed ones? So currently, there's not a way that I know of.
No,
you could always correct me. But
yes. So you are an heavily, you are a very good friend of the user interface, and you are doing the right choice. However, few of our customers are using Firefly as an API-based solution. So the answer is yes. You can have a workflow that says, once somebody introduced an unmanaged asset to the cloud, for example, somebody have an access to the AWS console and creating an EC2, then Firefly will detect that and automatically create pull request to your Git with that missing IaC code that is described in the new instance. So everything can be fully automated without using the user interface of Firefly.
Yes, I personally don't necessarily go that route, right? Because I want to see what's being created. If I get an alert that there's an unmanaged resources, right? There's only a small team and people that should have access. I can understand what you're saying, having a large team, or you can automate that using the CLI and the API. But I like to be able to say, okay, someone made this S3 bucket, and I'm going to go ask why, right? Because I'm a small team. There shouldn't be that much. But you can just click that button. Once you validated that it's good and that you want it, you click that button, you got the code that you can then put into your GitHub. The only caveat that I say with some of that automation is you really got to have your rules fine-tuned, because you don't necessarily want to add to your Terraform, the EC2 instance that your Kubernetes autoscaler created. Now you have an EC2 instance. When autoscaling goes back down, your Terraform is going to try to recreate that. And you don't necessarily want that, but if that's all like knobs, right? So the other thing I was going to show is the exclusion assets, things like that. So we have, so I was just putzing around before because I didn't really like that 40% number. I wrote, you can write rules here. This is a bad view. Let me go to this one. I wrote a rule to exclude ELBs that are auto-generated by Kubernetes, the autoscaler or the ALB controller. And so we have rules written here, where essentially if an ELB or ALB is created, like I don't want to show that up as unmanaged, because like the presentation said, like there are things that are automatically creating these and deleting them and creating them and deleting them. And you don't want to get notifications saying, hey, a new record was created or a new ELB was created, when that's just the autoscaler doing its job, or the operator doing its job. And so you can write using, I just was doing this, what's it called there? Open policy agent, that syntax, to exclude assets. And that way, so if I go back to my inventory here, I do have a big big chunk of unmanaged 43%. That's going to drop down because I just updated that rules once those kick into effect. And we look at my types of unmanaged here, and a lot of these are stuff that is auto-created by things. We do see some ELBs in here that actually looks like it did filter out some ELBs. So if I go down excluded assets and we search for ELB, we can see how many. These are all auto-created. If I open it up, you can see tags. The Ingress Nginx global controllers made these. So these are things that are automatically created by our automation that I don't want in my infrastructure code, because they'll delete them, they'll clean them up when I don't need it. And so you can see it, you can get lists of them, and it helps you find those and clear up your view of what actually matters. So I can say, these things on my list here are the things I should be looking at getting in my infrastructure code, right? This is the unknowns of unknowns. These things are the stuff that I know my automation is creating, and get them out of my view so that I'm not getting cluttered by things. The other part, right? Is there any more questions? Nothing new. Okay. The other part, which is really cool, is these insights that Firefly they have a whole bunch of stuff that's built in together. And I'm going to use this a really good example because we actually worked with you to make one, I believe. So these are just awesome rules that they've already created where you can get and say, hey, like these database instances are only, single availability zone. These EC2 instances are running on 2XLs. Like we want them, that's fine. Let me try to lab. But one of the things, in the poll, security came up a couple times. And so we can write our custom insight. We had a CSV that came out last year. And we worked with you to, write the rule here. And, right here we have 0 matching assets. So that means we have nothing that is vulnerable to that CVE. I know that you guys update your rules for security vulnerabilities and things like that, but if there's something specific that you're worried about or need to check, you can write a rule where this one in particular is Kubernetes. We look at the nodes and we essentially say if the kernel on these nodes is lower or greater, I don't remember the exact CSV, but if it's lower than this version, generate me a list of Linux EC2 instances that have this vulnerability. And these are the insights that they provide are really useful. Reliability, misconfigurations, they kind of break them into different things. AWS publicly accessible assets, and optimization. Some of you are talking about costs as well. So these are things that will help you get costs down, like unattached EBS volumes. I think you have something on your webpage from our use case. We had a customer that we managed their AWS and things like that, and they had a ton of unattached EBS volumes. And we were able to go to the customer and say, hey, customer, you have a ton of EBS volumes. If you delete these, you're going to save like 10 grand a month or something like that. So that's value that you can add right there. AWS Council, right? Assume we can add Azure subscriptions to GCP projects. Yes, I know of 100% that I think Azure and GCP are supported. Integrations. There are a lot of integrations. Version control, things like that. I do not want to make it white. So you can add other accounts.
Maybe I will add for a specific use case. So you ask for additional providers. So of course, the premise is to be a multi-cloud system. We are currently not supporting Azure, but it is work in progress. However, a very nice addition to this solution is that we are supporting SaaS utilities. For example, Datadog, and the idea here is to show you all of the configuration of those tools and then giving the user the capability to manage them using IaC. So for example, if you will integrate Datadog or New Relic or one of the other SaaS tools that Firefly support, you will get an inventory and the IaC status of each one of the configuration. And of course, Firefly can give you a drift detection and help you to get like a generate code for those. So the solution is not strict only for cloud providers. It's also about other tools in the DevOps ecosystem.
And I have to make a shout out right here to you, Aaron, and thank you, because like Datadog was something we requested and we worked with you to get that implemented. We're not a big team, we're not a big company. Your customer support's great. You help us make features when we ask. So if there's something that necessarily, because even if we go to the inventory, IaC Explorer, right? We can look at all our Terraform and you can see this kind of green bar here. And there's, say for this one, non-prod, there is 27% of Terraform things that we create that Firefly doesn't know what they are, whether they're custom modules or something else. We can explore that. But a Datadog was one thing that wasn't, and we worked with your team to add it. And so there are things that you have on your roadmap that will be added, such as Azure and things like that. So I have full confidence in your team.
Yeah. Thank you, Holden.
All right, gentlemen, we've got about 5 minutes left until we need to release our audience. So I do want to give each of you one chance to kind of wrap up and leave the audience with any parting words. So Eran, do you want to go ahead and get us started there?
Yes, I think this topic is fascinating. And again, regardless the fact if you're using tool like Firefly to solve that or other tools or in-house kind of solution, you just need to make sure you have a better understanding of what being introduced to your cloud or what is running before your time, and that footprint become much complex in time because of the phase and the scale. And we just need to get a better grip and really what is happening on the cloud. So this is like my main conclusion. Find the right tool for you. Of course, I will advocate and suggest to try it out Firefly, but regardless to this specific product, get better knowledge about your cloud. This is something that is essential for making a successful DevOps work.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Getting visibility is key. Firefly doesn't pay me. I pay them somehow, and I'm advocating them. But I haven't found another tool. So if there are them out there, send them my way or build them yourself. But being able to get a pure and good vision of what you have in your infrastructure, and that's what infrastructure code is all about. So having a tool that gives you visibility and then moves you into getting it all into infrastructure as code is very important. So, that's my recommendation, is just try to keep getting everything as infrastructure as code so everyone can look and know where it is and what's creating it, and then get a visibility to see what's out there that you don't know about. And, once you get that big view, things start getting easier to manage. You can say, here are the things. What does this do? Get your answer, turn it off, turn it on, whatever.
Outstanding. Well, Eran and Holden, thank you both for joining us. I do just want to real quick let the audience know that there are handouts available under that handouts tab. So feel free to grab those right now while I continue to close out. But those will also be available on the on-demand page as well. So to everyone who joined us today, just a reminder, this session was recorded. So if you'd like to rewatch, you should receive an email with a link to access this recording on demand. Or of course, you can find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars. On to our full $25 Amazon gift card winners. Our first winner is Andre V. Our second winner is Oleg P. Our third winner is Constance R. And our final winner is Raja N. So to our 4 winners, please do check your inbox to claim that gift card. It might be about 48, 72 hours before that happens. But if you don't happen to find that email, do check your spam folder. I'd like to thank Firefly for sponsoring our program today, and to our audience. We really appreciate you spending the last hour with us. If you don't mind, just stick around 1 extra minute. As soon as we close out, there will be a survey that will pop up on your screen, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. Let us know what you liked about our program, or maybe what you'd like to see in a future program. But otherwise, we do hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong learning experience. Holden, Eran, thank you both so much for being here. Everyone is free to connect.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.